The first pharmacists weren't wearing white coats in sterile laboratories. They were early humans in Africa, 77,000 years ago, selecting specific plants to repel insects, heal wounds, and treat pain. Long before the pyramids, before writing, before civilization as we know it, our African ancestors had already discovered that the forest held not just food, but medicine. And the evidence is written in their bones, preserved in ancient caves, and encoded in the knowledge systems that survive to this day. Welcome back to African Tales by JONA-LORE, where we uncover the buried histories that shaped humanity. If you've ever taken aspirin, used chamomile tea, or benefited from any plant-based medicine, you owe a debt to the African ancestors who figured out, through trial, error, observation, and genius, which plants could heal and which could kill. This isn't folklore. This is documented archaeology, peer-reviewed research, and evidence so compelling that it's rewriting our understanding of prehistoric human intelligence. Every claim in this video is backed by sources you can verify. Archaeological excavations published in Nature, research from the University of the Witwatersrand, World Health Organization data, and findings from institutions across the globe. We don't do speculation here. We do evidence. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Because what you're about to learn will change how you see medicine, science, and human history. These aren't just interesting facts. This is proof that scientific knowledge, medical innovation, and pharmaceutical wisdom began in Africa tens of thousands of years before recorded history. Let's begin. In 2011, according to Science Daily and research published in the journal Science, archaeologists led by Professor Lynn Wadley of the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg made a groundbreaking discovery at Sibudu Rock Shelter in KwaZulu-Natal Province, South Africa. They uncovered 77,000-year-old evidence of preserved plant bedding, the oldest known bedding in the world. But here's what made this discovery extraordinary. These early humans weren't just using plants to sleep on, and they were deliberately selecting specific plant species with insect-repelling and medicinal properties. According to the research, botanist Marion Bamford identified the plants as belonging to species known for their insecticidal and aromatic qualities. The bedding consisted of layers of fossilized sedge stems and leaves, overlain by a tissue paper-thin layer of leaves from plants that, according to documented analysis, had chemical properties that would repel mosquitoes and other pests. These people, living 77,000 years ago, understood plant chemistry well enough to engineer their sleeping environment for health benefits. But it gets even more remarkable. According to the archaeological evidence documented in Science, these early humans periodically burned their old bedding layers and replaced them with fresh plant material. This wasn't accidental. This was deliberate hygiene, using fire to eliminate parasites and pests, and then rebuilding the bedding with fresh medicinal plants. 77,000 years ago. In Africa. Now let's jump forward, or rather, to more recent prehistory. In 2024, according to research published in Nature and documented by National Geographic, the Natural History Museum, and multiple archaeological sources, scientists analyzing a 15,000-year-old burial at Taforalt Cave in Morocco, also known as Grotte de Pigeon, found compelling evidence of medicinal plant use by prehistoric hunter-gatherers in North Africa. The burial site contained charred remains of the ephedra plant. According to research led by Dr. Abdeljalil Bouzougar, director of Morocco's National Institute of Archaeology and Heritage Sciences, this wasn't a random plant that happened to be near the burial. Ephedra produces powerful alkaloids, ephedrine and pseudoephedrine, compounds that, according to documented pharmaceutical research, are still used today to treat pain, reduce inflammation, lower blood pressure, and relieve respiratory issues. Here's what makes this discovery so significant. According to National Geographic and ethnobotanist Giorgio Samarini, ephedra is bitter-tasting and has little nutritional value. The ancient occupants of Taforalt weren't eating it for food, but they were using it specifically for its medicinal properties. And we know this because, according to the archaeological evidence, one individual buried at the site had undergone trepanation, ancient cranial surgery, and showed evidence of healing around the surgical site. The researchers believe medicinal plants like ephedra may have been used to manage the pain and prevent infection. Think about that for a moment. 15,000 years ago in Morocco, humans were performing brain surgery, and they were using plant-based medicine to help patients survive the procedure. The site also reveals another fascinating cultural practice. According to documented research from Archaeology News Online magazine and the Natural History Museum, the Taforalt community practiced ritual tooth extraction, likely as a rite of passage for adolescents. The pain and bleeding associated with tooth avulsion, according to Dr. Bouzugar's documented analysis, might have been alleviated by ephedra's analgesic properties. This points to a sophisticated understanding of herbal medicine that likely helped these communities endure painful procedures and honor cultural customs. Now, before we go further, I want to give you some context. Because when we're talking about prehistoric humans using medicinal plants, we're not just talking about Homo sapiens in Africa, and we have evidence that even our evolutionary cousins, the Neanderthals, understood plant medicine. Between 47,000 and 50,000 years ago, according to research published in Naturwissenschaften and documented by the University of York, 5 Neanderthals lived in El Cedron Cave in northern Spain. In 2012, according to NBC News and Sci News reports, Dr. Karen Hardy and her colleagues analyzed dental calculus, mineralized plaque, from these Neanderthal teeth using pyrolysis gas chromatography mass spectrometry. What they found was remarkable. One individual, designated Adult 4, had azulene and coumarin compounds trapped in their dental calculus. According to the chemical analysis, these compounds are produced by yarrow and chamomile, 2 plants with well-documented medicinal properties. Yarrow is an astringent used to cleanse wounds and counter internal bleeding. Chamomile has settling effects on colds, headaches, intestinal distress, and menstrual pain. Here's why this matters. According to earlier research by members of the same team, documented in academic journals, the Neanderthals at El Cedron carried the TAS2R38 gene, the genetic variant responsible for detecting bitter-tasting compounds. They would have found yarrow and chamomile strongly, intensely bitter, and they consumed them anyway. And here's the kicker. According to analysis of the dental remains, this individual had a dental abscess, a hole in the jaw that would have caused intense pain, and also carried DNA of the pathogen Enterocytozoon bienniusi, which causes severe gastrointestinal problems. This Neanderthal was sick and in pain, and they deliberately consumed bitter, non-nutritional plants known for their pain-relieving and anti-inflammatory properties. According to Dr. Stephen Buckley of the University of York, as documented in the research, the evidence indicating this individual was eating bitter-tasting plants, such as yarrow and chamomile with little nutritional value, is surprising. We know that Neanderthals would find these plants bitter, so it is likely these plants must have been selected for reasons other than taste. That is what deliberate medicinal choice looks like in the archaeological record 50,000 years ago. Not in Africa, but in Europe, showing that knowledge of plant medicine extended across human and near-human populations. But here's what the standard history books don't tell you. While Neanderthals in Europe were using plant medicine 50,000 years ago, and early humans in South Africa were using it 77,000 years ago, it was Africa, specifically Africa, where this knowledge didn't just exist as isolated discoveries. It became systems. It became wisdom passed down through generations. And it became the foundation of healing traditions that survive to this day. Now, let's talk about what happened to that ancient knowledge. Because it didn't disappear. It evolved, adapted, and survived as African traditional medicine. According to the World Health Organization, as documented in official reports from 2022, 80% of Africa's population today still relies on traditional medicine for their basic health needs. Let me repeat that. 80%. In Ethiopia and Burundi, according to Wilson Center research, that number climbs to 90%. According to Wikipedia and academic research, more than 4,000 medicinal plants are used in tropical Africa alone. This isn't a relic of the past. This is living, breathing, practiced medicine serving hundreds of millions of people right now. Traditional African medicine, according to South African History Online and Intech Open Research, is organized into 3 levels of specialty: divination, spiritualism, and herbalism. The practitioners are known by different names across the continent: Sangomas in South Africa, Inyangas in Eswatini, herbalists in Ghana, but they share a common foundation: deep knowledge of plant chemistry passed down through generations of observation, experimentation, and teaching. According to documented research, an Inyanga, which means man of the trees in Zulu, is a healer who makes medicines from herbs, our roots and bark. After diagnosing a patient, they go into the bush to find specific plants necessary for healing. Their training takes years, sometimes decades. Why? Because, according to South African historical documentation, these are powerful medicines that can be toxic if the wrong dose is given. Precision matters. Knowledge matters. This isn't superstition. This is pharmacology, developed through generations of trial and error. Sangomas, and according to Wikipedia and traditional healer documentation, are spiritual healers who diagnose illness by looking not just at physical symptoms, but at the patient's environment, relationships, and social factors. This holistic approach, treating the whole person, not just the disease, is something Western medicine is only now beginning to fully embrace. African traditional healers have been practicing it for thousands of years. And here's what's remarkable. According to Wikipedia and the Durban Herb Trading Market documentation, there is now an emerging herb trading market in Durban, South Africa, that attracts between 700,000 and 900,000 traders per year from South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. Smaller trade markets exist in virtually every African community. Traditional healers have become so essential that, according to WHO documentation, 40 African countries have developed national traditional medicine policies. 19 have established facilities for local manufacture of herbal medicines, and 25 have integrated traditional medicine into their health sciences curricula. This isn't primitive. This isn't backward. This is a sophisticated medical system serving the primary healthcare needs of hundreds of millions of people who often lack access to Western medicine. And Western medicine? It learned from African plants. But according to PMC research on traditional medicines in Africa, herbal medicine was once termed primitive by Western practitioners. But through scientific investigation, there is now a better understanding of its therapeutic activities. Many modern pharmaceuticals, according to documented research, have been modeled on phytochemicals derived from traditional African remedies. Let me give you just one example. According to Wikipedia and academic research on African traditional medicine, in South African Sangomas have long advocated for a local plant called unwil, or cankerbos, scientifically known as Sutherlandia frutescens, claiming it assists in the treatment of HIV/AIDS, cancer, and tuberculosis. A 2013 literature survey, according to documented research, identified several glucosides, sterols, and sterolins contained in the hypoxis species, known locally as incomfe or African potato, that showed promising therapeutic prospects in laboratory testing. Western scientists are now studying these plants that African healers have used for generations. The knowledge was there all along. It just wasn't written in journals Westerners could read. It was encoded in oral tradition, passed from elder to apprentice, preserved in practice rather than publication. Now, before we wrap up, there's an African proverb that captures exactly what we've been discussing. It says, "The forest not only hides man's enemies, but it's full of man's medicine," on healing power and food. That proverb contains 77,000 years of accumulated wisdom. It contains the knowledge of early humans at Sibudu, who understood insect-repelling plants. It contains the wisdom of the Taforalt community, who used ephedra to manage pain. It contains generations of sangomas and inyangas, who memorized the properties of thousands of plants and passed that knowledge to their students. And here's what keeps me up at night. How much of this knowledge has already been lost? How many plant species have gone extinct before their medicinal properties could be documented? How many traditional healers have died without passing their knowledge to the next generation? How many African communities, pressured to adopt Western medicine exclusively, abandoned the wisdom of their ancestors? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Colonialism didn't just steal African land and resources. It tried to erase African knowledge systems. Missionaries called traditional healers witch doctors. Colonial governments outlawed traditional medicine. Western-educated Africans were taught to view their own medical traditions as superstition. And in the process, priceless pharmaceutical knowledge that could have saved lives, cured diseases, advanced global medicine, was dismissed, suppressed, and lost. We're only now beginning to recognize what was destroyed. And we're only now beginning to study what survived. And we're racing against time because deforestation, urbanization, and cultural disruption are accelerating the loss of both medicinal plants and the knowledge of how to use them. So, here's what I need from you. Think about the medicine in your own home, the aspirin in your cabinet, the herbal tea in your cupboard, the supplements you take. Where did that knowledge come from? And ask yourself this: why aren't African traditional healers, the inheritors of humanity's oldest medical knowledge, given the same respect, recognition, and resources as Western pharmaceutical researchers? Drop your answer in the comments. I want real thoughts, not just agreement, but genuine reflection on medical knowledge. Who gets credit for it? And what we're losing when we dismiss traditional wisdom as primitive. And if this video changed how you see African contributions to medicine, if learning about 77,000-year-old medicinal plant use made you reconsider where human knowledge truly began, then hit that like button and share this video. Because every share tells the algorithm that hidden histories matter, that African innovation matters, that the origins of medicine deserve to be told honestly. Subscribe to African Tales by JONA-LORE, because we have dozens more stories like this. See stories of African genius in mathematics, astronomy, engineering, agriculture, fields where Africa's contributions have been erased or minimized. Stories that will make you question everything you learned in school about who invented what and when. The first pharmacists were African. The first doctors were African. The oldest evidence of medical knowledge comes from Africa. Not Europe, not Asia, Africa. And that knowledge didn't die. It survived in the hands of Sangomas and Inyangas, who still practice today. It survived in the 80% of Africans who rely on traditional medicine. It survived in the forest, waiting to be remembered. Thank you for watching. Thank you for learning. Thank you for giving a damn about the real story of how humanity learned to heal itself. I'll see you in the next one, where we'll uncover another piece of African genius they tried to bury. Until then, stay curious, stay critical, and remember, the forest is full of man's medicine, healing power, and food. We just have to listen to those who never forgot.